Pilot lights.
Pilot lights is another reason they don't like to turn off the gas to a large area, because they all go out, they all have to be relit, and they're responsible for that. It's not to say it never happens. If the leak is big enough, it's a big enough problem, they know how to do this, and they'll go back and do that. They'll take responsibility for relighting that. But the method that they're using is not unique to here. This is the method that is applied everywhere in the country. They are following the national standards and protocols for doing this. The fire department is very happy with their service and very happy with their working relationship, and they found that the PG&E people respond very quickly to incidents with all the resources that are needed to handle them. So, as I say, you could read the report, but my opinion about this, everybody knows that PG&E got a black eye and a tarnished image with what happened in San Anselmo. It was a horrible, tragic incident. There's still a lot of investigations, other things that are happening around that, and we get that. But I will tell you that, in my opinion, PG&E has really recommitted itself to safety to try to be the best they can in the country. They have 20,000 employees. A lot, virtually all of them are really dedicated to making it a good, safe system. They want to take pride in it. They set up a new safety division. People are working with our first responders, public safety. And I can tell you, from the position of our local fire department, they could not be happier with the service that they're getting from Pacific Gas and Electric. So, yes.
Once again, here on page 1. I met with Dave Stasiowski. He brought the map for the area, as we were talking about, digging the hydrogen. And it was pretty clear that the map didn't really have all the information on the pipes that were in the ground. And he agreed with me. When PG&E opens up the ground, I take pictures of what's down it. So we discussed that, and it's just a little sidelight. There are still some questions about their maps. I don't, for example, have total faith that we do in fact know what's down there. The other point is that when you have a distribution pipe coming down Butterfield Road and you have a need to pinch that pipe or close off the flow somehow, they have to bring in large equipment on a flatbed truck. This blocks Butterfield. If people are trying to get out of the hollow, which I think we all agree is the best move to do in a major fire, out of here, a flatbed truck with a large digging apparatus is probably not going to be very helpful. So I would only ask that we consider the possibility of how that would be handled in an emergency. And I have not heard that addressed, so we don't have to talk about it now, but I ask that as part of this process, you consider what happens when you have the need to open up a major thoroughfare with people trying to escape. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Chris?
Hi, some of you know that I'm one of the 20,000 employees at PG&E. I've worked for them for 26 years, and Carol will be happy to respond to your further questions. I think we have great coordination on any emergency response, and appreciate the fire district's work on this. One thing I might add is that one of the biggest causes of leaks, as some of you know, is contractors digging in to pipes. And we have a very broad-based campaign now called Call 811 Before You Dig. And it's just good to remind everyone here that when you employ contractors around your home, do any renovation, do any work, any construction work, they are obligated by law to call 811 to make sure they have the precise location of the gas lines that serve your homes. But it's always good for you to ask the contractors, because again, the leaks that we see are by a great majority caused by dig-ins, contractors, third parties, that are usually inadvertent, but also very often due to the failure of the contractor to call 811 and get the map. So I just throw that out. Really appreciate everybody's awareness of that. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else, Rich? Okay. So that concludes the updates. Let me just say before we move to the presentation, if you look on the website when it's up, Rich's report, I happen to have a chance to look at a draft of it. You can see how we benefit from Rich's expertise in all things emergency related. And I should also mention Frank is an internationally recognized expert in pipeline and pipeline pressures in the oil and gas industry. So we have two civilians on our board who just happen to have the expertise that really pays off for us when it comes to issues like this. What we're going to do now is make a brief presentation. Rich and I are going to kind of take turns to talk about the subjects that each of us has taken responsibility to look into. So we'll bounce back and forth a bit. We won't cover the ground that we covered in the April 6th meeting, so you won't have to hear again about our hardscrabble roots and how we were pushed to the brink of insolvency by San Anselmo in the 70s, how we engineered an extracted promise from San Anselmo to keep Station 20 open in 2004, how we parlayed that and our reserves into membership on the Ross Valley Fire Board after 28 years of being a non-voting member. So where we are today and what we're going to focus on today are status reports and updates on some of the topics that were raised at the April 6th meeting and subsequent to the April 6th meeting, as well as in the 30-day comment period that just closed. Let me say about that real quickly that the comment period never really closes. We just need to be able to take a snapshot at some point and answer the questions that have come in. So you're invited to continue to submit comments, questions, recommendations continuously. But we'll report on what we've got, what we've heard from you in this presentation, and then we'll have a chance to talk about all of that after we've concluded the presentation. All right? Rich, I think you lead off.
Mr. Chair? Yes, since all three directors are members of the Sleepy Hollow Homeowners Association and one director was an officer of the Sleepy Hollow Charitable Foundation, there is a clear conflict of interest. All directors must recuse themselves from making any decisions to take any action on this agenda item.
Thank you. Rich, go ahead.
Okay, outreach and engagement. As everybody knows, this project's been going on for a while. There have been 8 publicly noticed meetings, a couple of informational mass mailers regarding the projects and advertising meetings like this one. We did a really comprehensive PowerPoint presentation at our last meeting. It's been up on the website for a long time. 2 30-day solicitations of public comment. To Tom's point, those are to get a snapshot. We continue to take public comment, obviously. Numerous responsive documents. There's a lot of detailed information on the website that are responsive to the types of questions and recommendations that we've been getting. We have letters of support from public safety officials, and we have had numerous private meetings and discussions and emails and public records requests with concerned citizens. So it's not just we sit here, people ask us to meet with them and explain things, and we've given a lot of time to doing it. As you remember, at the April 6th meeting, we asked people to make recommendations about this project or other projects they had in mind. We talked about several of them, went through a 30-day period. In our meeting in June, I think it was June 27th, something like that, we spent 2.5 hours briefing our response and taking questions and answers based on all the recommendations we received. And then we posted a 14-page document on our website taking all of those recommendations and giving our analysis and our feelings and our thoughts and so forth about the pros and cons of that. I'm not going to go over that because we've covered that territory before. It is available to you. However, just in quick summary, they really fall into 3 areas. There's things that we can easily continue to fund and support, fire flow improvements, you heard that today, the fire pump program, vegetation management, chippers, all that stuff, road access, wow, I guess we heard about that. Community preparedness programs, and charitable contribution. We might be able to support, if a new facility is built, some backup communications, possibly a connection to a fiber loop, trailer caches where they make sense, safety upgrades to schools where they make sense, and the SRA fee is a more complicated issue, but we're looking into that. Again, written explanations of our position on all of these things, quite detailed, available on our website and briefed out at the last meeting.
What is SRA?
Is the
State responsibility area. The state of California a couple of years ago, you may know, decided that they would charge all residents who live in unincorporated areas a state responsibility area fee to pay for fire protection, ostensibly to pay for fire protection. However, the legislation also says that the fee is payable only by those people who are not served by a municipal fire department. Well, we are served by a municipal fire department, and so we don't think we should have to pay the SRA fee, which is, I think, $135 a parcel this year.
117.
I think it's going up, but the issue is being litigated in Sacramento by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And so we're not in a position to take a position on it until we've seen the outcome of the litigation.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of detail on our website. And then there's some things that we just can't fund. We just can't fund full-time public safety positions. I mean, for example, putting an ambulance, next ambulance in, that's $1 million a year. Those are ongoing expenses. Our reserves will be depleted towards that. Undergrounding of utilities is, as again, it's discussed on the website, but it's a much bigger project. It requires all the community to buy in and pay for it all. It's vastly expensive. And then some people suggest that we simply return the reserves. Again, I refer you to the website. There's a lot of discussion about that. We don't think it's a good idea. And that's all things that have been discussed, briefed on the website for quite some time. There's one remaining issue that's a little bit of a surprise to me. And this is a quote from one of the documents on the website. This is our document we prepared. It's called Red Cross Standards for Emergency Shelter and Evacuation Centers. And I'm going to read this to you because this has been up there for a long time. It is the intention of the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District to work with the Sleepy Hollow Homes Association to enter into a pre-disaster agreement with the Red Cross, work with both groups to provide shelter training and regular exercises for interested district volunteers, and provide the support necessary to ensure that the Sleepy Hollow Clubhouse-based emergency shelter meets all Red Cross standards. Not only has that been on the website for more than a month, this topic is covered extensively in the 14-page analysis we did, and it has been briefed in all the meetings we've had. There is a misunderstanding that a few have here based on one line from the minutes of a meeting that was held, I believe, last November. And in that, I'm referring to the existing building. This building, right now today, is not recognized as a shelter by the County of Marin, and it does not have a Red Cross shelter lead. So it doesn't comply with this. My reference on that day, which has been completely misinterpreted, was relative to the existing building. As I'm saying, this building is not a shelter. So I want to be very clear. It is our intention in the new facility relative to this to do exactly what we say here. And there's a lot more detail on the website about that. So there should be no more mystery around what the goal here is. I'll turn this over to Tom at this point.
Okay. Well, as you can see in the yellow highlighted portion, we're not conducting a formal vote on whether to participate in the clubhouse project or whether to place this on a ballot or anything else that's subject to a public plebiscite. Instead, we're evaluating the project based on its merits and the input we've received. We're providing this information to you so you can get an idea of what we are hearing from the residents. The fact is we spend most of our time dealing with a handful of opponents. But we do get a large majority of people who've sent us compelling messages of support. The simple fact is that based upon the responses we've received, the community seems to want us to pursue this Community and Disaster Recovery Center project. In the most recently closed public comment period, we received expressions of support from 26 different homes in Sleepy Hollow, or in the district. Of those, 20 were new respondents who have never responded previously. 6 of them were people who did respond previously, so we don't count them since they've made a previous response. In addition, we received 8 responses from people who are opposed to the project. Just 2 of those were new respondents. 6 of them were people who responded in opposition in the past. And let me be clear, just so you know how we've counted this. We're not going to raise the tally for someone who sends in a number of responses, like voting for one of the Giants on the All-Star team. You can't submit multiple votes and have those count. Instead, you're counted just once, and your opposition is noted unless you express a change of heart and decide to oppose or favor. In addition, if we receive multiple responses from a single household, if they all express the same feeling, opposition or support, we count that as 1. So for instance, we've had one household that supports it, both the husband and wife, actually 2 households, both husband and wife wrote individually. We also have a household that opposes it, both parents and a child wrote individually. We count those just as one each, right? We think that's the fairest way to do it.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I understand you taking all of this information in, and my question is, I believe, and I know all of you, that you know that as members of the board, that you have a fiduciary responsibility to everybody, correct?
Correct.
So, and my question is, rather than making your decision based upon whether somebody wants it or doesn't want it, I would hope that your decision is based upon what is the best use of taxpayer funds for fire prevention.
I would refer you to the second sentence. We are evaluating this project based on its merits and the input received. So, I mean, I agree. We are not conducting a formal vote.
Right.
So we're all on the same page.
It's not a popularity contest. We're trying to be analytical about it and not be swayed, but we have a duty to report the facts. We've asked people to respond. These are the results.
No, I understand.
I would add to you, because we say this again and again, that we are not just a fire protection district. We're an emergency preparedness district. And we answer one fire call and we answer 20 emergency calls. If you have a heart attack and you wake up, the face that you'll be looking at is a fireman, paramedic. And that's what we're about.
Thank you. Rich, the next slide. Okay. So,
But
in the second round of comments, this period that just closed, we didn't receive any new recommendations or suggestions from anyone about possible alternative projects or concurrent projects. Those were all received in the first batch, and we addressed them at our June 27th meeting, and we're going to talk about them again today in detail. Instead, the comments have mostly focused upon four things. One is the legality of what we are considering doing. Secondly, the access to the project for residents who do not belong to the Homes Association. The third is whether or not pursuing the project would cause us to abandon our traditional services or other services that people think we should be providing. The fourth is whether emergency communications in the event they're needed are safe and secure. And then finally, the methodology of our financial analysis about the proposed leasehold interest that we seek to obtain. And with that, I'll move Rich to the next one. Yeah, all right. And this one is mine. Very generally, you should know that we are chartered and authorized under what's called the Fire District Law of 1987. It was an update after a half-century of various provisions in the Health and Safety Code of California to consolidate them all in one section of the code. And sections 13,800 et sec authorize fire protection districts to do what they do. Those include the authority to enter into leases and other agreements for the benefit of the district, to provide any services relating to the protection of lives and property, and to disseminate information and operate educational programs. So we believe we're within our charter in pursuing this project. The next question that's come up a couple of times is whether this constitutes an impermissible gift of public funds to a private organization. These are generally prohibited by the California Constitution, except when you're appropriating funds for a public purpose and it's legislatively determined to be reasonable. And that applies even if doing so provides incidental benefits to other persons or entities, so long as it supports the agency's public purpose. As we said numerous times in the April 6th meeting and subsequently, there's no donation here. I know some people like to use that word. A donation is a gift. We're not proposing to make a gift. We're proposing to invest some funds in the construction of the facility for which we will receive value in return. That's not a gift. That's an exchange of value. Rich, can you take this one?
Yeah.
Access one on.
Okay, so, this is a big and very important topic, and it has been from the very start of this project, the position of our board, that a new community center must provide equal access to all residents of the district. We told the Homes Association that from day one. we represent more than just Sleepy Hollow proper. And we have consistently stated the same thing in all of our public comments, no news here. Last night, which was actually Thursday night now, the Homeowners Association adopted the following resolution in support of equal access and benefit for all residents. I'm going to read it to you. It will be on their website. I know it's not today, but it will be shortly. So they had a meeting on Thursday, and here's what they said. It takes a few minutes to read this, so bear with me. So the Board of Directors of the Sleepy Hollow Homes Association has decided to adopt the following resolution. The Board of Directors shall seek to negotiate a definitive agreement with the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District in return for the district's contribution of up to $2 million towards the construction of a new community center using the following principles for the negotiation. When completed, the Sleepy Hollow Community Center, Community Emergency and Preparedness Center shall serve the entire Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District. All Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District services provided, including fire protection and emergency response benefits, will be available to all the fire district taxpayers and property owners without regard to whether they are dues-paying members of the Sleepy Hollow Homes Association or where they reside within the fire district. Number 2, all services provided and supported by the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District will be free of charge and open to any resident of the fire district. 3, access to the community center will be available to any resident within the fire district. Fees associated with access to the community center will be at the same rate for all fire district residents, and there will be no exceptions or distinctions made among Sleepy Hollow residents, Sleepy Hollow Home Association members, and those fire district residents who reside outside the Sleepy Hollow boundaries or within the fire district boundaries, and solely in regards to community center access fees. The Board of Directors may consider adopting additional principles to guide the negotiations with the district as appropriate. 5, upon completion of the draft definitive agreement with the fire district consistent with these principles, the Board of Directors will provide the membership of the Sleepy Hollow Homes Association with notice of the draft agreement and an opportunity to provide comments on the draft agreement at meeting of the Board of Directors prior to the Board of Directors voting to approve, disapprove, or modify the draft agreement. The resolution was voted on in meeting and it was unanimously passed. So this is a document from the Homes Association. I've been told it will be on the website. I don't have copies for it because I don't have the official one of them in my hand and all, but that's their document, and questions about it are best addressed to them. But I think it reinforces the principle we're talking about.
Could you tell me how far the fire district goes, the Sleepy Hollow Fire District?
I'm probably the best person to do that because I'm the only survivor when all the badness took place. 40 or so years ago, 30 houses then, 40 houses now, that were in the county and were not in San Anselmo, on the border of the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District. And I think quite truthfully, the reason that they approached us was because they didn't want to pay San Anselmo taxes. And we, for good or bad reasons, said to these 40 homes, yes, you can pay your taxes to the Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District, and we will provide